I'm your host, Marsha Florence for Just Ask. Today we have with us Detroit Radio Information Service. Hurry back and join us. Hi, I'm your host, Marsha Florence for Just Ask. Today we have with us Detroit Radio Information Service, Kim Walsh, the director, and for the Bridges Project, Irene Wardell, project coordinator. Hi, ladies.
Hi. Hi.
Thank you for coming to the show.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Now, Kim, you're a returning guest to our show, and with this being a new year and everything, we wanted to get caught up on some information about Detroit Radio Information Service.
Great.
Okay.
The Detroit Radio Information Service is Southeastern Michigan's radio reading service for the blind and print impaired, and actually we're a media service, but we're a little different than any other media service in that our primary purpose in being is to provide equal access to the printed word. To make that happen, we use about 140 community volunteers who read more than 100 newspapers and magazines every week for people who can't see, hold, or comprehend printed materials.
Okay. Okay, so now I wanted to ask, how did you and Irene, tie into each other? Because I know Irene's with Bridges Project.
Right. Well, we're both with Wayne State University.
Okay.
The Detroit Radio Information Service broadcasts on a subcarrier channel of public radio, WDET, which is licensed to Wayne State University. And probably about 3 years ago, Irene and I met through the Developmental Disabilities Institute at Wayne State, where Irene is employed, through a project called Bridges to Educational and Career Advancement, Educational Opportunity and Career Advancement, which is a 4-year project funded by the Department of Education to help people with disabilities move from underemployment, unemployment to training and work situations. And Irene has been a participant in that project, which she'll explain more about, but she also hosts a program on our audio service. So every week the Bridges Project has a half an hour's worth of airtime.
All right, now is your program a 24-hour station, or how is it handled?
The Detroit Radio Information Service is on the air 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we use volunteers live in our studio to read publications like, every day of the week we read the Detroit Free Press, the Oakland Press, the Macomb Daily, the Detroit News, and then through a national service out of New York, the In Touch Radio Network, we provide the reading of the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, and then there's a plethora of magazines that air all night. So we are live in our studios pretty much from 7 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. In addition to just newspapers, we also read things like grocery store advertisements, department store advertisements, and do public service advertisemements, public service programming, and public service announcements every hour.
Now let me ask you this. The population that you serve is majority visually impaired?
Well, we're available for anyone who can't see, hold, or comprehend standard printed material. So actually it could be somebody with severe arthritis or someone who's had a stroke. I can say that really the majority of our audience are visually impaired individuals, and most of those are individuals who've lost the ability to read later in life and have grown to depend on the publications that we provide.
So basically it all ties in together, regardless if it's visual or, like you said, arthritis or stroke or whatever the person, if the person is comfortable in having the service, is that how they end up with the audio?
Actually, they find out about the service generally through the Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped, maybe through a rehab program they're going through, maybe through participating in the Bridges program they learn of our service. So once someone learns of the service, they apply for it, and if in fact they a couple different qualification ways. If they're already registered with the Library for the Blind and Physically Handicapped, they're immediately eligible for our service. They don't need to provide us anything further except the branch that they're registered with.
Excuse me, are there quite a few branches, library branches, that have this particular service?
There are 3 or 4 in our broadcast area. We cover about a 5-county area, but primarily the Oakland County, Wayne County, and Macomb County Library. Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, and Washtenaw counties have libraries for the blind, and then there's the downtown sub-regional library for the blind. So all of those facilities have our information, as do low vision centers and nursing homes and other institutions throughout the community.
So you say it takes volunteers. Now, when someone call you and say, "Hey, I'd like to volunteer to be a reader for the radio service," or how does a volunteer become?
All the time.
Okay.
We generally, to be honest, we usually have more volunteers apply to be on-air readers than we have on-air time slots for them. So we have not only the regular program hosts, and that's generally 2 people reading a publication at any one time. So if you can envision our small studio, there's primarily a table and the 2 readers sit opposite each other, and one reader selects an article while the next reader is kind of thumbing through the publication, and they go back and forth. People learn about our service through articles that appear in the media, through friends. They may be a student at Wayne State and be a communication student and want to get additional voice, on-air experience. Or they might actually just be an intern in our studio and want to get some airtime.
Well, that's great. That's great. Now, Irene, I don't want to leave you out there, so I want to get some information from you. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Irene, and start off, if you don't mind, with your disability, and then tell us how you got involved with Bridges?
Yep, I was born with a disability, and it was just a birth defect. And how I got started with Bridges is I worked at Wayne State. Someone had approached me that knew me and asked if I would become part of Bridges, and I was working on another project at that time, and so I found out all the information, decided this was a great project to be part of, because it was a project that assists people to fulfill their personal goals, and that's a big thing for me, is that you can fulfill your goals.
So has Bridges fulfilled your goals?
Yes, it has, in many ways.
Okay. So how does one come in contact with Bridges, and can you tell us a little history on Bridges?
Well, as Kim was mentioning, Bridges is a 4-year grant project, and we are entering our 4th year, and presently we are out trying to secure additional funding. Excuse me.
That's okay.
What was your question?
No, how did it get started, or what's the history on Bridges?
Well, no, I wasn't part of the beginning of it, except that I know that my director decided to get these people together. We have 2 other partners. We have educational accessibility services up on campus, which is disability service, support service that the campus supplies.
For students.
Right.
Okay. Now, how does one come in contact with the program? I mean, is it literature out and about, so people just read up on it?
Right. We have a lot of brochures out there. We do a quarter newsletter that we send out. We send out about 2,000 to agencies and to all our participants. We do a lot of presentations on, at career days. And
now, do you find it like when students are registering for school, is there a number of students with disabilities that contact Bridges for support?
Well, you know what, one of the barriers that we have is that people or students with disabilities may not always know about the support service on Wayne State campus, but somehow or another they find out about it, and then through that department they find out about Bridges. And what we do is we have peer mentors that can offer individual one-on-one supports. And so where the supports are more academic related at educational accessibility service, our support can be more individually and more personal. Maybe they need assistance on learning how to study, or just maybe they're uprooted and need to find a new home. So our peer mentors can assist them with connecting them with resources to find that.
So how many people are generally on staff?
Well, I have peer mentors, and we have anywhere from 6 to 8 peer mentors at one time.
Okay.
And then there's myself, and we did have 2 grad assistants, but as the project is winding down, we have kind of relieved them individuals, and now we're into research, because we need to know what has worked and what hasn't worked over the last 3 years so we can continue the project.
Do you have a lot of volunteers involved with Bridges also?
No, our peer mentors get paid. It's one of the
Okay.
few projects that that mentors get paid, and which I think is a bonus.
Okay.
And we don't really deal with volunteers at this point.
Oh, okay. Now, you ladies have a working relationship, so at the point that Bridges is on the air, what is Bridges doing? I mean, is it discussing things that go on within the campus life of Wayne State, or what does Bridges do on the air at Detroit Radio Information?
But a lot of times we tape events that happen on campus, and then we air them on Bridges. But what we have done in the past is that we have talked a lot about Bridges, what Bridges is, what services are provided, what our peer mentors, you know, what their roles are, and sharing a lot of stories about what our mentors have gained from what we call our participants mentors, or mentees, and we have brought them on the air to just share their story on how Bridges has bridged that gap between being at home and being successful.
Okay.
And this Bridges project, or the on-air program, helps broaden the Bridges mission beyond just those participants, so that our entire listening audience, our service goes into some 40,000 homes, and all of those individuals benefit from the information.
Okay. Okay. So if I was to have one of these audio boxes, which we're going to discuss in a minute, I would know, is there a certain time or set time for Bridges to air?
It airs every Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning, and then it's repeated again that evening at 7:30.
Okay. So how many of your programs are pre-recorded? Is there many pre-recorded programs?
On our service, not very many. Most of our
Okay.
programs are live. The readers of the daily newspapers, of course, read live, because the primary goal of the service is to not duplicate other services. And we are able to provide timely dated information. So, of course, today's paper is read today, and it's of no value tomorrow, really. So
Okay.
all of those programs are done live.
Okay. Any pre-recorded messages or anything? Like, do you have commercial breaks or something?
It's a non-profit, non-commercial service, but rather than commercials, we are public service announcements from just dozens of other community services, because our goal is that once someone gets our service, they will learn of many, many other services. That's what, you know, our information service is designed to provide.
Okay. So the PSA is substitute for would-be paid commercials.
Exactly.
Okay, that's wonderful, because there's some good PSA, well, public service announcements. So there's some good public service announcements out there.
Every hour, we're telling our listeners where support groups meet, where seniors who are being abused can call for assistance, where they can find out more information about Social Security, you know, and so forth and so on.
Okay. Well, ladies, let's take a commercial break and come back and discuss this radio service
Great.
box here on the table. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Someone once said, we all come into this world alone, and we leave the same way. But in between, we have the chance to connect and help each other, to find ways you can do something to connect with the people in your community. Call the Points of Light Foundation. Do something good. Feel something real.
Hi, and welcome back to the second half of the show. For those of you who are just joining us, we are with Detroit Radio Information Service, the director, Kim Walsh, and the Bridges Project Coordinator, Irene Wardell. Now, ladies, we left off with asking a question about the radio. What is this called, Kim? I don't want to mess the name up.
It's a closed-circuit radio receiver.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, our programming is broadcast on a closed-circuit system, so that you can't just tune in a regular radio and hear what we do.
Okay.
We loan out these closed-circuit radio receivers to qualified listeners, and then from thereafter, they have access to our programming.
Okay.
So this is one of the ways that people can hear our service.
Okay.
Also, in some communities throughout Metro Detroit, our audio signal is offered on cable television, so that it may be running behind community calendar listings, for example, in some communities, so that the audio track there is our service. So if you live in a community where DRIS is being used, then people can tune in anytime on that station and hear us as well.
DRIS is the
Acronym.
okay.
Detroit Radio Information
Okay,
Service,
so
yes.
DRIS, okay. Okay, now it only has one knob on here. So the one knob means it's one station?
It is one station only.
Okay.
This is very helpful, actually, to our listeners, because a lot of times their disability makes it very difficult to, it would be very difficult for them to tune a regular radio. So having this simply plug this unit in and turn on a single knob, and there we are, makes it a very easy and accessible service for people to use.
And there's a lot of clarity. I see you have an antenna and everything.
Okay.
Now, can you use batteries?
No, these are plug-in radios.
Okay.
Battery models are made. I generally invest in these more durable models, because when we loan them out, we like them to be able to stay in a home for years and years and years, and these just hold up better than smaller portable radios.
Okay.
But this antenna is quite powerful. There's also an audio output jack on these, so that people can actually connect them into their regular audio system at home and have our audio signal coming out on their speakers.
Okay.
Or they can record programs. We have listeners who may record the grocery store advertisements every week, so when they go to the store, they can listen to them on their cassette player.
That's wonderful. Now, the big word here was loan. When you say loan, is there, I want to be clear on that, and I'm sure the audience wants me to. When you say loan, I can call and tell you that I'm in need of a radio relay box. What is it called?
Radio
sorry?
receiver.
Radio receiver. And then I may ask you, what is the fee for that? Or will someone come to my home and insert this for me? What would you tell me?
Those are good questions. The first step would be that we would send you out an application and one of these large print brochures,
Okay.
so that you'd learn more about the service.
Okay.
And then if you decide that that's something you do want, you would return that application, and in fact, if you were qualified, we would be sending you one of these radio receivers. Or if you reside in a community that offers it on cable, we probably would first tell you what channel to see if that was an acceptable way for you to hear the service.
Okay.
But once you're qualified, these receivers are loaned out to our listeners free of charge. They cost us about $100 a piece. So. We raise the money, we buy the receivers, and then we loan them out to qualified clients free of charge.
Free of charge. That was the
Yes.
key word, ladies and gentlemen, you were looking for, free of charge. Okay, now when you say you would, are you delivering this box, or it goes through the mail? How does it come to the home?
Most often they are mailed out. There are cases where people with severe disabilities don't feel comfortable getting them in the mail, and our volunteers who read on the air are usually willing to give up a little bit of their time to drop one of these off, or pick one up, or exchange one if it's not working correctly.
Okay. Now, so if a person has had one in their home for a year or two and then they want to return it, do they just call?
They generally do.
Okay.
Or if they're moving out of our broadcast area where they can't hear our service anymore, because this would be useless in another community,
Okay.
for example. They often call. We also call our listeners. We generally call a listener within a few months of after sending them out a radio, to make sure that they have found all the programs they were looking for, that they understand how to use it, that it works correctly. If they don't care for the service, or they find they don't have time to use the service like they thought they would, that might be an opportunity for them to return it at that point. Otherwise, it gives us the opportunity to explain our program schedule a little more thoroughly. Let them know we do have an audio hotline which gives out our programming any time of the day or night, so
All right.
people
Now,
can.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but does your staff have a running list of all the persons who have one of the boxes?
Oh yeah, we keep people. We have all of our listeners are in a database.
Okay.
So
I was just wondering. I'm like,
yeah.
if you mail it out, chances are a person has received it, or how do you do a follow-up to find out when and if they received it?
We maintain everybody in a database, and in
Okay.
fact, we've got applications back from. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year.
Okay.
We maintain applications on file even after someone has returned a radio, because they may wish to get that another radio at some time in the future. Maybe they've moved out of the area temporarily. Maybe they've moved to another state, and now they're back again 2 years later, and they can call us up and we can reactivate their application. So we keep a database. We do a quarterly newsletter that includes programming information and upcoming events that we're doing and things like that to keep our listeners informed.
Now, let me just ask you this. Do you have one of these in your home to actually listen to the readers throughout the night so you'll know what's going on?
I used to, but Ferndale, where I live, happens to be one of the communities that carries our service on cable. So pretty much when they don't have city council meetings or local programming on, and they are running their calendar listings and community event listings, our service is there. So in my home, I can turn on, I believe it's channel 53, and there we are.
All right. Well, how about you, Irene? Do you have one of these in your home?
I have one in my office,
Okay.
and so I listen to it not all the time because I have a very active environment, but I do listen not to my program because
Not to your own program? Okay.
I hate it.
I think that's good for Irene to mention that too, because at the Developmental Disabilities Institute at the Bridges Project, that's one of the locations where Irene has a receiver that she can show to participants in the Bridges program, and then they can become interested in the service themselves and apply for their own radio. We have radio receivers loaned out to quite a number of low vision clinics, senior centers, and a number of other locations where people can sample the programming with someone assisting them to see what the programs are like and see whether or not they want to have the service at home. Waterford's adult daycare center, for example, at the senior center has one of these on loan, and people can listen as a group.
That's good.
I have several vision impaired mentees who have received a receiver, and they listen to it all the time, and it's been very helpful because they do have a hard time with reading papers and getting information, and they've been very happy with it.
Okay.
So,
Now, I did have a question in reference to, you said qualification. This is a nice, firm paper here. So, okay, you get this in the mail, or you can pick it up, and you fill out the application portion right here. Okay, and you
Actually,
return.
that's a form that you can request an application.
Okay.
That's not actually the application for
all
the
right,
service.
All right. But this brochure here tells you a little bit about the service and everything, and you can mail this back and say, I want to hear more about it, and then you'll send them an application?
Absolutely.
Okay. So what is it that will qualify a person, more or less?
A really wide variety of disabilities would qualify a person. Obviously, people who are blind or visually impaired could benefit because they don't have access to reading print. Or if they do, it's very cumbersome and difficult with a reading machine.
But you don't need any medical information. I mean, you don't need like a doctor's order or a prescription or anything to apply for.
If you're already registered with the library for the blind and physically handicapped, you don't need anything further than that.
Okay.
If you are not yet registered with the library for the blind, or you're buying your books on tape at a commercial outlet and don't feel you need to register for the library, for example, all you need to do is provide a note or a prescription from your doctor, or a note from a social worker that describes what your disability is and that you're qualified for this, that it would benefit you and enrich your life to use the service.
Okay. Okay. I was just wondering because I'm thinking to myself, if someone sends a form in to you and say, I think I need one, yet they have no idea what truly the service is about, how do you know for sure if that person is actually a person of a disability that needs one or not?
Well, if a person feels that they'll benefit from the service after they have gotten our brochure and read what we're about, or had someone read it to them, or say they're going through a rehabilitation program like at Detroit Receiving Hospital's Visually Handicapped Services, and they have a professional show them a radio receiver, tune into some programs. Maybe they've called our program hotline and heard what comes up on Tuesdays or Thursdays, and we send out the radio receiver to them. Either they tune in and they don't care for the service for some reason. Maybe they don't like it that we use volunteers. Maybe they thought it was going to be soap operas. I don't know. Maybe maybe they just don't have time. If they like the service, they keep the service, and if they don't, they either would return it right away, which we've had that happen. Not very often, but we have had that happen. Or when we're doing the survey, the person might say, you know, I really expected something different. This isn't what I thought it would be. I'd like to return the radio, and we get it back at that time. But if somebody believes they're going to benefit from the service, they have missed having access to their favorite newspapers and magazines, and they feel this is a good way to get that information. We generally chat with most people that call our office on the telephone a little bit about this service. People have questions. So
I believe so, and you know, but the program sounds very enlightening, because if you are losing your sight, or more or less have lost your sight or the ability to read a paper or pick up a paper and this and that, you want to get in a comfortable seat or, you know, on the couch or whatever and sit back, and it's just like somebody's reading to you and almost putting you to sleep. So it sounds, you know, like something's really brilliant here, because I know that in everyday news, I wake up in the morning, the TV comes on automatically, and I get to hear what has happened overnight, you know, within the 45 minutes that I'm getting ready for work. And just that much time of hearing news, good or bad, it lets me know while I was asleep, this happened, and what I missed while I was at work or whatever, this has happened. And I'm sure people who cannot see or have the ability to read the paper feel the same way. They may be housebound or whatever and want to know what's going on, and like you said, the sales papers, what Farmer Jack has on sale, you know, all the supermarket sales, and if they can find out in advance, then they know what they can get picked up for them or delivered.
You know, one of the differences is, too, though, you know, we have the ability to read dozens of publications, and you maybe get a lot of your news on television, but if you hear a story, a little snippet of a story on television, and you want to know more about what's going on, you'll pick up your paper. You might get a New Yorker magazine or a Business Week or you know, a magazine that focuses on the issue that you were listening to, and then you could read the more in-depth story, and that's one of the things that our service is for. We are able to provide more than headline news. We are able to provide the in-depth, full story that was printed in the paper. That basically it's to provide equal access to these kinds of things.
Sounds good. Sounds definitely good. Now, ladies, we're getting close to closing, and Irene, I wanted to ask you about hold these dates: September 24th and 22nd and 24th, 1999. Are we heading that way already?
Yes, we are.
Is there anything that
it's coming quick.
Is there anything we need to know? Provide information, and develop policies, recommendations.
This is our second Women and Disability Conference that DDI will be hosting again at Bridges. And yes, it's very important to hold them dates, because this is a conference for not just women, but anyone with a disability to take time to network with other people. I think one of our big comments that we had from a lot of disability individuals was that they had the opportunity to network with other individuals with disabilities and find that you can reach your goals.
That's important.
You can be successful. So hold them dates. If you want more information, call either Kim or I.
Okay, well, I like the fact that you plan so far in advance.
You have to.
And, you know, definitely keep us posted. Now, ladies, is there phone numbers that we can reach either one of you at Kim? Is there a phone number that we can call Detroit Radio Information
The best
Service?
number to call our service is area code 313-577-4207, and that's our program hotline number. We have a voicemail system that you can press a number and hear the programs for each day of the week, and you can also leave your name and address there, and we'd be glad to send you either a volunteer application or a listener application.
Okay. Irene, can we get in touch with Bridges?
Yes, the number there is 577-2654. That is the main office, and if you just call and say you're interested in Bridges or getting information at the Women and Disability Conference, they will connect you to my office.
Okay, and you can mail us out something?
We will mail it out that day. We are good at that.
Okay. Well, ladies, I want to thank you both for coming, and Kim, I'm so glad you came back for a second time, and Irene, it was a pleasure meeting you. Come back anytime, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, as you all know who I am, I'm Marcia Florence, your host for Just Ask, and as I normally say, if you know someone with a disability, don't be afraid to ask, just ask. Thank you.